Why, hello, wild world out there. Welcome to Godly Spirit Animal. And today we'll be discussing the fox. And I know when we initially get an idea in our mind, we think the fox is this radiant auburn with the sleek bushy tail. But actually, foxes come in a variety of different colors. The one that kind of scours around our household here has a grayish body with a golden tail, and you can kind of spot it sneaking across the pasture before it disappears into the forest. And they're just such a treat to see. Foxes can also be quite nomadic. So it turns out this Arctic fox went from Norway 3,500 kilometers all the way across to Canada in 76 days. So we'll get on to the first strength of a fox. They're kind, caring, and cute. So it turns out a lot of people may be envious of your youth. Being kind, caring, and cute means that you remain very youthful, and people will even admire your beauty into your 50s and 60s, like the cute little Mimas and Peepaws of the world. You really attract the joy of children, and that is a real special treat for everyone who's around you. Number 2, adaptability. So adaptability for the fox means you're able to see different paths that no one else would even consider or would think you could even achieve. So just like the fox that digs under a fence or creates burrows for the den, you are that person that people come to ask for advice at work or relationships, because you're able to see different ways to tactfully achieve a successful goal. Number 3, goal-oriented to excess. So what does goals-oriented to excess means? It means that you will get your sights upon something and will do anything in order to make it happen. So there's actually this one movie that comes to mind. It's called Fantastic Mr. Fox by director Wes Anderson. And if you haven't had an opportunity to watch it, I definitely recommend it. Wes Anderson is actually one of my favorite directors of all time. So what happens in this movie is the fox sets his mind on tricking these farmers in order to, get the plethora of food. So he actually creates an underground society in order to continuously trick these farmers, and they can all accumulate the bounty. And so there is obviously more to the story, but in the end, we all know that the fantastic Mr. Fox ends up outwitting and outsmarting the farmers, and he does achieve exactly what he set his mind to. And that's what you will find with people with the spirit animal fox. So number 4 is dress to impress. So what do we think about when dress to impress? Well, have you ever been to a party or an outing where there's just these certain people that stand out in a crowd and you don't know what it is, but they have this kind of debutante sparkle to them, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they wear brand names. They could actually shop at a thrift store, but because of how they carry themselves and their attire, they know how to dress to impress. So the words dapper come to mind, or foxy lady. So they definitely are able to gain the attention of others without even trying. Number 5 for strengths is extremely loving parents. So some people might not know this, but kids are actually born deaf, blind, and completely helpless. It's actually those poor things. So the reason why foxes are such incredibly doting and loving parents is because their children, in a way, just need so much love and attention and cuddles with their tails. And so they make such extremely compassionate and loving parents that any child would be blessed to have them as one of their parents, because I don't think they could ever love their children more and try to help them throughout life in building wisdom or their strength and character. They are there for them right from the beginning until adulthood. I don't think they stop loving their children. So there is so much love that they have to give, and that is really an absolutely blessing of a strength. Oh, so now we're going to discuss weaknesses. And it doesn't mean that it's absolute. This is something you may have struggled with in your youth, but now you've taken on the challenge and it's been conquered. But number 1 is being recluse. And when I think of recluse, I think of someone who likes to hide in their burrow and it's their sanctuary. They kind of allow reality to pass them by and they feel very safe. But sometimes you need to break out. You need to visit your friends and family. They definitely enjoy your company. And so if you opt not to have the hermit mentality, it can be a real blessing for you. I actually have my Bible here, and so we'll read a little bit of scripture from Luke 57. Oh, what chapter is it? 9, 57 to 59. As they were walking along the road, a man said to him, "I will follow you wherever you go." Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head." So foxes enjoy being in their dens. That's where they enjoy to be. So number 2 weakness is you may take things that aren't necessarily yours. So taking things that aren't necessarily yours might be post-it notes from work where you're like, ooh, those are very beautiful colors. I would like to partake in those. But I always think of Dora the Explorer with the sneaky fox and they would always say the term, "Swiper, no swiping," because he always had this ability to kind of manage to kind of have an eye for something, and then it would end up somehow in their vicinity or household or vehicle. So always be aware of that yes, things may be attractive in some ways and you may want those objects or want those things, but always ensure that there will be no ramifications for those temptations. Okay, number 3 is collateral damage. So number 3 is collateral damage, and this is a real difficult one. It's one where you are completely innocent to the situation or circumstance, but because someone has manipulated you, or they may have even abused you in some way, maybe physically or emotionally. The problem is with the fox, it is not known as one of the alpha spirit animals of the animal kingdom. And sometimes some people may take advantage of that. And so I actually have a scripture here in my Bible, and we are looking at Judges 15:3. Samson said to them, "This time I have a right to get even with the Philistines. I will really harm them." So he went out and caught 300 foxes, tied them tail to tail in pairs. He then fastened a torch to every pair of tails, lit the torches, and let the foxes loose in the standing grain of the Philistines. He burned up the shocks and standing grain together with the vineyards and olive groves. So here the foxes are unfortunately brought into this real disaster of a situation, and they obviously didn't want to be a part of it. They were completely and utterly innocent. And so with these types of things, always be careful, always be wary, and trust your instincts when it comes to certain people or certain situations or certain things. And don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to be vocal if something doesn't feel right. And if you need to, definitely seek therapy for anything that may have harmed you in your past, because this is something, a burden that you shouldn't carry for till your end of days. And so number 4 weakness is sometimes serious to a fault. So sometimes serious to a fault may not be such a bad thing. You're highly motivated, and so you sometimes anticipate others around you will have that same passion and that same drive that you do, especially if you recall in the strengths, very goal oriented. Not everyone has that same type of energy that they can invest in certain things. And so I would just recommend always have grace for others. Maybe in some ways that they might not move at the same pace, but they may actually catch on to exactly what your vision is and be able to carry out and be a really amazing helper for you. So we go on to number 5. Okay, so number 5, surprise, surprise, it's actually considerably stable. You have a few weaknesses, but nothing too major. So whoop whoop, I guess praise be God. It's actually, I guess, one of the supreme spirit animals. Very chill, very relaxed. You know how to have a good time, and people just gravitate towards your personality. I guess the only thing I could possibly think of is a slight addiction to Amazon, but that's something you can control. So thank you so much for joining me today on the analysis of the fox. And I guess we'll see you again soon. So be at peace and seek joy in all things.